This is piece 120, The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, who painted it in 1889 with oil on canvas. The context for this is that Vincent van Gogh was here in this asylum in Saint-Remy, France, in the southern France, and he was here in one of these second-story windows looking out at the view. And this is the view that he saw at night. Now, some of this is different. He's ad-libbed a bit, but he would paint it then from memory during the day in one of these lower rooms. He painted this view 21 different times. He was really fascinated with the night sky. The reason that he was there in Saint-Remy is that the year before, in 1888, he'd had an incident with Paul Gauguin. Paul Gauguin was one of the several artists that Vincent van Gogh had invited to a house in southern France where he felt that these artists could gather together and do their work and just consult and feed off of one another. Well, Gauguin was with Van Gogh a bit of an insider. And so the two of them argued, and it's believed, well, it's not known exactly what happened, but it's believed that Van Gogh kind of went to Gauguin with a knife and then ended up turning it on himself and cutting off his earlobe. Others think that Gauguin, who was a bit of a hothead, could have taken a sword and swung it at Van Gogh and cut off just an earlobe. At any rate, we're not sure, but that did happen, and this is Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait of himself with a bandage over his ear. So it was shortly after after that then that he, on his own, it was in May of 1889 that he admitted himself to this asylum and stayed there for a year. So the form of this piece, the cypress trees on the left, two of them here reaching to the sky, the town here in the center, there's a crescent moon up on the right, and then there's this wildly stylized sky. It's got all these lines, use of line here, swirling, whirling around, twisting around. These swirls over here on the ground, those are olive trees. The form for Vincent van Gogh is he's very well known for what's called impasto, which is where he would have a really thick application of paint. So sometimes so thick he would just take the tube of paint, very expensive, and squeeze it out onto the canvas. Now you can see this is another of his pieces that he was studying the night sky, and he painted this by gaslight, but he left some really thick ridges that we can obviously just see that stick out from the canvas. That's impasto. And it is so clear that this is the painting, another of Vincent van Gogh's mountain landscape behind St. Paul Hospital, where he also used really thick impasto. And that's the painting that my son touched because it stands out. It's like texture that you just want to touch. We left really quickly after that. So Vincent van Gogh saw the Starry Night as a challenge. The Starry, not this painting. He actually didn't think that this is one of his best works. So he saw, though, painting the night and the stars in the night sky as a challenge. He felt like it was really full of color. And so he invested, 21 paintings in it. So this is not a very big painting. You can see here, my son standing in front of it, not very big. Okay, in terms of content, there is lots of discussion about what this all means. And I would say that we have 2,000 letters from Vincent van Gogh to his brother Theo, who is 4 years younger and who was an art dealer and who supported Van Gogh, who only sold one painting in his lifetime. In those letters, Vincent talks about his art, and this one he thought was not his greatest work. In fact, he didn't send it to his brother when he was sending like 8 paintings to try to get, his brother to sell. He kept this one back. So he didn't write about it a ton, but some content ideas that have been thrown around. First of all, people who study the night sky, they say that in 1889, these stars would have been here, that this was a realistic account, that this right here was probably the planet Venus. And they say that this probably was not a crescent moon, that it was a three-quarter moon. Other people who analyze the content of this piece, just to get some diverse views here, feel like this cypress tree is like a bridge to heaven. Van Gogh was interested in cypress trees for their form, he wrote to his brother, and so some say this is just all about studying the um, bottle glass green color of cypress trees. Then another content analysis diverse view is something that this landscape, this town was like a garden that Vincent van Gogh used for his spiritual meditation. And this is just a reference to when Jesus was um, outed by um, uh, Judas, that Jesus went to a garden and it's called his Gethsemane, and there he meditated, and that's where Jesus was ultimately arrested by the Romans. So, is this Vincent van Gogh's place to go to meditate and to um, have a spiritual experience? Question mark. In terms of content, though, we know a couple things for sure that are factual, and that is that the church was not there. This church is more of a church that would be found in the Netherlands, where Vincent van Gogh was born. The other content that we know, because he wrote about it to his brother, is that he said that these exaggerations from the point of view of arrangement, their lines are contorted like those of ancient woodcuts. And so he was really into woodcuts, Vincent van Gogh was. Now, we know that woodcuts existed in Europe, for sure, ancient Europe, but we also know that Vincent van Gogh was very influenced by Japanese art. He wrote, in fact, quote, "All my work is based to some extent on Japanese art." For example, this is Vincent van Gogh's painting. It is based obviously on this Hiroshige painting called Sudden Shower at Oashi Bridge at Ataka. And then this is Vincent van Gogh's, which he titled Japanesery Bridge in the Rain. Vincent van Gogh was super impacted by Japanese art. Now, this is our piece, The Great Wave, or it's part of The Great Wave. And so one wonders, is this like The Great Wave? And then finally, the function of this piece is that it expresses the brilliance of the night sky and his challenge to be able to represent the night sky. And again, for him, it's not considered his best work. He doesn't consider it that. But since 1941, it has become super popular and is considered his magnum opus, his greatest work. So that's Vincent van Gogh, and quite popular right now are these Vincent van Gogh shows that you could go see where you can actually kind of step into his art. That's Vincent van Gogh, The Starry Night, painted in 1889, oil on canvas.